future, talk radio will actually educate, inspire, and make you think. The future is now. Topics and music that affect your life from Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
Welcome to Both Sides Now, featuring the unconventional duo, Dr. Shirley and medium Kelly White.
Two perspectives, one world.
This is Both Sides Now.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Both Sides Now. I'm Dr. Shirley.
I'm medium Kelly White.
And John's with us, but do you have a microphone back there,
I
John?
do now,
we're
yes.
We're in a different studio
Yes,
tonight.
we are.
And
Yes.
John's a little far away from us.
I know.
So we have a hard time seeing him. But we have a wonderful guest tonight. But before introducing her, I wanted Kelly to kind of go over some stuff that's happening in the universe.
Yep, absolutely. I don't know if anybody's felt it here, but I've actually had two experiences today with it. Mercury is going retrograde tomorrow.
Oh.
It lasts until
Again?
September 22nd, and you can already feel the effects. I mean,
Yeah.
I actually had the weirdest thing. I before I got to the show, I ordered some food from the deli, and I went to go pick it up, and I ordered matzo ball soup, So I get all the way back home to go eat my matzo ball soup, and I open it up, and there were no matzo balls in it. They had actually forgotten to put matzo balls in the soup. I'm like, what is this?
And that's so
So
disappointing
you had
when
crepe
you're
block
like,
instead.
when,
how's that possible?
when you're looking forward to eating something, it's so
Well,
disappointing.
That's the name of the soup.
I know.
It's like it was just the darndest thing.
Did you have
So-
crepe block instead?
No, it had nothing. That was the whole point. I couldn't believe it.
That's so
But then the
funny.
other thing is, I went to order something for my daughter for her baby shower, and her site had gone down.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, this is Mercury in retrograde. So
Oh, yeah.
expect
So, yeah,
these
remind us
kind
what
of
Mercury
things.
in
Mercury in
retrograde means.
retrograde are things that will break energetically. Things break.
Technology and stuff like that.
Well, Cheryl, it happened on Saturday when I was at the office. All the power blew out. I forgot
That's
to tell
right.
you.
That's right.
So
Thank you for letting
when
me
you
know
go
on
back
air.
tomorrow, you'll see what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But it started already. It's things like that. So during a time like this, you don't sign contracts, don't buy new things, big ticket items. Don't do that. But I'll
Okay.
tell you what it is good for. And this one's in Virgo, so it's good for writing.
Yeah.
And ironically, we have a writer tonight on our
Yes,
show. But today
yes.
it's good for writing. It's good for bringing back old people into your life. That
Now, why
I don't know
is
if
it
you'd
good
want
for
them or not,
writing?
but because it brings you back to a time. It's
Vivid
Mercury
recall,
is the
right?
good recall, and it's also Mercury's the fastest moving planet. So when it goes retrograde, it doesn't really go backwards; it goes slower. So it'll bring old ideas back to you to write, and
Oh.
somehow you get the time. It brings you the time to do it. So really research your the past of things that you wanted to write about or you never took the time to do. Now is the time, and additionally, because that wasn't enough, we have on September 1st, just Thursday, we have a solar eclipse. So and it's a new moon solar eclipse, also in Virgo. So what that is, it can bring up a lot of fear, it can bring up a lot of worry, it can bring up a lot of guilt. Remember what we always say is fear is an illusion. But this is a practical one. It means setting goals, and there's a brighter future ahead. So set practical goals. So if you're writing a book, really set the time to do it, and then make sure you'd follow through with it. So all of this is just coming through to end things and to start new. So that's what we have in September.
So since we've had such a clusterfuck of things happening, since the beginning of the year, and you said
it's
that
been
with
a
all the
very
planets doing all the stuff.
year for most people, for everybody.
At the end of September, does it start to shift? And
I'd love to say, yahoo, yes. I'm going to say that, but, it gets better.
I mean,
end
is
of
it the whole
September.
year? Is it the whole
Well,
2016?
It's till 2017, but who's counting? It's just.
I am.
I'm going to say, let's just take it 1 month at a time at this point.
Okay.
Let's go to the
All
right,
right,
end of
that's a good
September where
idea.
things should get easier and better for people, the end of September.
Yeah, we're still having what's called the spiritual upgrade. So we're
Yes.
upgrading our operating system.
Yep. That's very true.
So we're purging a lot of stuff that no longer works, and we're bringing in the new that's going to facilitate.
And it brings in a
better.
lot of
Yeah.
awareness to people.
Yeah.
I mean, this kind of awareness, when there's a shift in awareness, people start to wig out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're looking
The
at.
breakdown before the breakthrough, as I
Yeah,
often say.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's very true. I like that. The breakdown before the breakthrough.
Good for business.
Thank you, John.
It keeps us busy, Cheryl.
It does keep us busy. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's cheap.
So I want to introduce our guest. I'm going to put on my glasses so I can read. I want to read her bio because I want to make sure I don't miss anything. Her name is Tami Holzman. I've known her for years. And she loves to make people happy, and that is so true. Every time I see her socially, she has a huge smile on her face. And whether that means giving a confidence boost and an introduction to that person they just can't seem to get, or strategic counseling on not yet a fully baked idea, she's passionate about helping people succeed, and that's very true. She was born and raised in Chatsworth, California, not too far from you, and was always a C student, which really bothered her, but not enough to actually study. She was just busy honing her social skills at the mall. Tami found humor as a way to compensate for her insecurities, and years later, it was her humor and self-reliance that helped her achieve professional success. She wrote this wonderful book, which is what we're going to look at tonight, From C Student to the C-Suite. Now, for those of you who don't know what the C-Suite is, it's CEO, CFO, COO, all those top-level corporate titles. And it's a modern-day guide to business and relationships, showing how a girl with straight C's in school but straight A's in emotional intelligence, which is so important, we're going to talk about that, became savvy in the cutthroat business world. Tami began her career in the entertainment industry as a talent agent, show creator, and executive producer with development deals at NBC, HBO, and the Fox network. She segued over to a successful career in marketing services for Fortune 500 companies. Today, she's an angel investor, advisor, entrepreneur, and brand ambassador. Tami loves to mentor and promote opportunities for women. She lives in the Pacific Palisades, overlooking the Pacific Ocean, which is beautiful, where you can find her hosting friends while saluting the sun with a cocktail in hand, an ever-present smile on her face. So welcome to the show, Tami. John, where are they?
They're clapping.
Where are our folks? Oh, we can't hear them.
Yeah, you can't hear them, but the audience can.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We usually have
we
this,
clap for
right.
ourselves?
We usually have this invisible audience that claps for us. But first of all, the book is so witty, so well written.
Thank
the
you.
cartoons are so hilarious and go so well with what you're reading in that moment. I mean, it's great.
What I have to say, what I loved about it is that are you right-brained, completely right-brained? Because for me, it was written for a right-brained person, so easy to read and to follow and fun, and it's so witty.
It should be easy. I mean, there's a point behind the book to make things simple.
Yeah.
You shouldn't overcomplicate things, and in a weird way, that's a sign of intelligence. I mean,
Yes.
Einstein would say it as well, but you want to
Yeah.
make it simple enough that you can share it with someone else. I say that you can, tell someone the idea like you're talking to a fourth grader.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And it was so easy to read, and it just flowed so easy, And I love what you put in there. I think there was a quote from Einstein. What was the Einstein quote in here?
If you can't explain it simply enough, it's not a good idea. A version of that.
A version of that. There was something about how school, something about curiosity. That if you lose your curiosity, which is, I think, what you've always had.
Yeah,
And what you
yeah.
never lost is curiosity of life, really.
I think that helps you get to the relationship part. I think if you're innately curious about people, they're going to start to open up.
We always talk about curiosity in the show because it's also the antidote to judgment. When you're curious about something, even if it's something that you either don't like about yourself or bugs you in someone else, being curious about it takes away, the judgment piece.
Well, it allows us to have different types of guests on.
Absolutely.
Because we've had some different types of guests
Oh, yeah.
so I love that you're always curious about that.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about how you got here.
Well, it was kind of till I got to the book, it was a kind of a combination of things that kind of came to light. I always questioned my, intelligence. I was an average student, and it was very interesting. I stumbled across an article in Forbes, and it said 85% of getting business is your emotional intelligence, and it's 15% of understanding the product, which would be on the IQ side. And I said, oh, well, hello. Duh.
This article's for me.
That would explain things. I mean, it only had taken me to my mid-40s to figure that out. But it was definitely an aha moment, you know, and at the same time, I was hitting one of those birthdays, now that you know it, let's say 45, where you start to say, where did I fall short? Instead of looking at where did I succeed?
Right.
So I had an associate who encouraged me to write a book. He said, you really cannot script this shit, basically. And you have a magical way of getting to people, and you should put it down on paper. And I had taken that moment of turning, 45 and said, you know what, let me go through and see what I have accomplished. And the book was one of them that just kind of got me to that point. And I realized I was a winner, not a loser.
Yeah.
So what we do is we find negative things when we hit monumental birthdays instead of positive things.
That's so true. That's so true. And I think it's just so helpful to, because you put in here, you really talk about your insecurities and how we don't have to focus on those. We can still, reach our goals and become successful and be happy in life, even with insecurities. The idea of not having any, and then we can be successful, or then we can have fun, or then we can, have a happy life, is just bullshit, basically. And I love how you talk in the book, because she uses fuck, bullshit, all those great words that really
I'm
stress.
very excited that we're allowed to cuss here.
Well, interestingly enough, Tony Robbins uses fuck a lot, actually.
Well, the truth is, it's an emotional language.
It really is. It actually it gets the attention of the person, really.
Well, there's something
pierces through.
There's something so emotional about using those words. Yeah.
Well, there is a study that says that it eases pain. They're starting to do more studies, but you could feel better about cussing because it's actually good for you.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Okay, well,
so.
thank you. I feel much better now. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the difference between IQ and EQ, because that's fascinating to me, and I have read so many studies that show exactly that so much more important.
I mean, emotional intelligence is there's kind of two sides of it. I mean, there's the personal side where you can look at yourself, and there's also the social component, and it's really being able to read emotions. I mean, it crosses both sides.
Yeah.
But can I go into a room and read the room? Am I paying attention to the signals? How can I change the room to have it work to my benefit? Being empathetic, your curiosity would be a great emotional intelligence signal. I mean, a way to get there, to be emotionally intelligent.
And also knowing what you're feeling and being able to be okay with what you're feeling and regulate your own emotions, correct?
And it's that check-in, right? And if you're feeling pretty shitty and insecure, it's okay to share that with someone else. It's okay to say, I don't have all the answers. As a matter of fact, people kind of embrace it. It takes away that you're not bullshitting me factor, and I can trust you.
And it makes you more human, because everyone feels that way.
Everyone.
At one level or another. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've probably all at this point have had friends that have become CEOs or been through that period of your life where your friends are getting to that level or you're getting to that level. And it's really amazing. I've been fortunate enough to be on the side where they've shared their insecurities about being scared. I talk about impostor syndrome.
Yeah.
Of we all feel like a fake. Are we going to be found out? Someone's going to find me out. I have no idea what I'm talking about pretty much ever. And it never goes away.
Well, it's funny you said that, because in therapy, I've had many clients that have had that, and it's really tough. It doesn't go away. And it's an interesting process to work with somebody who has that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, they say 70% of successful people have it, and it's actually more common in women. And there's a lot of things more common in women. Right. We are more emotionally intelligent, by the way.
Yeah.
So that it's inherent in us to be able to we're just more in touch with our feelings.
I think it's because we don't get told.
John.
It's okay.
Stop crying.
I'm a gay man, so I'm more emotional.
Yeah, there you go. But I think it's because we don't get told stop crying like a little girl. And when guys say, I sat there at this movie and I cried like a 6-year-old little girl. Why a little girl? Why not a little boy? Or why not a big boy? Or I think we get conditioned that way too. So it's a little bit more acceptable for women to have emotions, but not acceptable for men. I think we both have the same capacity to feel them, certainly.
Yeah, and sometimes it depends on the scenario where you can kind of switch roles and participate that way. I personally love when men open up, and I think it's an advantage in business, where I think women have a number of advantages that they don't really talk about in business, but one of them is because we are emotionally more intelligent. I find and there's less of us. I mean, there is still less of us in the business world.
Yeah.
But if you know how to tap into that, and you can even get, let's say you are doing business with a man, you can get him to emotionally open up. You're kind of almost there to get the business because you're their confidant.
Right.
They don't get a chance to find many confidants in business if they're with a man, when the men are dealing with men directly.
Yeah. So what's an example of how to do that? How would someone do that?
Oh, I would say as soon as possible. I mean, if you want, you can start drinking. That helps.
Yeah. But I mean, how would someone? What are some questions that would elicit that, or that would help?
I think getting.
I mean,
getting
I know
people
you have a lot of tools in the book.
I definitely have a lot of tools in there, but getting people out of the business conversation and just into life questions, and to where do you live? How you have a family? You have. If they have a family, maybe once you're in a dialogue, they might give you hints that they're struggling in their personal life, and all of a sudden you can expand on different topics that really can build a trusting circle. And that one just comes to mind.
Yeah.
But it could be that their daughter's struggling in school. It could be they're worried about the new CEO at the company. But anytime anyone's confiding in you, that's your time to kind of jump on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To build the
To build that trust, to build that confidence, kind of that circle.
Well, because as you say in the book, people really love to talk about themselves, and building more of an emotional connection then bonds you to that person, and so you're going to be more memorable. I mean, you do talk about in parties, you don't talk that much about business.
Yeah.
You're actually more socializing, and there's a reason for that, which is what you're just talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I always say, share your secrets, share your business.
I mean,
that is so funny. That's so true.
Yeah. I mean, you're right on, because I was in business, and I ended up being a senior executive for one of the largest companies in the world, and worked really hard to get there. But how I did it was all through EQ. I could have cared less about the product. I was in the meat business, and I was a vegetarian.
Right.
I could have cared less.
Well,
but
that
I mean, seriously, and I was everybody's confidant. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's how you're absolutely right. And I would always, make sure that everybody was taken care of, which is one of the things you talk about. Be a caregiver in your book. I love that aspect when you were talking about that, because in business you don't really hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no judging.
Yeah.
We don't have a halo on our heads.
Yeah.
Be a caretaker.
Right. Yeah. But I mean, it's also the way you do it.
I'm schmoopy, and I happen to be like loving, and you'll know. I also have another tip in there, and you saw me do it when we were in the green room, and I say go to first base at every meeting. So I hug you, I kiss you, I don't judge you. I'll hold your hair. If you're throwing up, I'll never tell anyone. I will feed you. I will take you home for Passover. Yeah. So, absolutely.
So I have a question, Cal. Do you think Tami is an empath?
Oh, definitely. When I
Okay.
read the book, I felt the whole time that you were an empath.
Do you know what that is, Tami?
No, please share.
Okay.
Well, an empath is somebody that can walk into a room and know exactly what everybody's thinking and feeling. And they're very intuitive. It's a real intuitive place to be. So when I read your book, I read it completely. As I was reading, I said, "Oh, this woman is completely empathic." And yes, you did come up and you hugged us, and I knew that you were a caregiver, and I knew that you were loving and caring and good and schmoopy and however you want us to call yourself. But I really have to say that when I read the book, I felt that you were an empath. So somebody that can walk into a room, understand what's going on, and then deal with their feelings as well to everybody else. So my question to you would be, as a businesswoman, did you ever walk into a room where it was difficult for you?
Oh, of course, because they're probably being insecure on their side and they're putting their walls up, right? And the question is, I'm always like, how am I going to break down this wall? And, but it has been, because there are tough situations, and sometimes things are out of your control. Someone else might be leading the meeting, and I mean, I do have a whole section in there called the douchebag theory, and douchebags and cockblockers.
Tell us about that.
You know, you walk into a room, I mean, a douchebag could be where someone's playing like devil's advocate in a meeting, right?
I can't stand
Of
that.
course, I hate that.
And we're trying to win the business, and they're challenging the buyer the whole entire time. I'm like, we just lost the business.
And this is someone on your side.
On my side,
Yeah.
yes. That's one example of a douchebag.
So true.
So many examples. I'm
there's
sure.
so
There are
many
so
examples.
many. Someone that might point the finger, that they don't want to take the blame, you know, possibly.
Yeah. And so, how do you deal with when you're?
It's like anyone else. It's tough, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't help. It's natural. It's another reason why I talk about. I have an emotional currency model in there, and I have the PUTS model, right? I kind of have the opposite. It's really, you want to try to stay away from the douchebags if possible, and it's not always possible.
Yeah.
It's not.
But try to stay away.
Yeah.
And
Especially in Hollywood. Woo.
Yeah. You know, for me, I struggle with it because I have one of my insecurities might be that I want everyone to like me, right? So instantly a douchebag that I feel I can't win over is already like stressing me out.
Okay, that's an
I cannot
empath.
win over the douchebag.
Yes, that's an empath.
That's an empath.
Instead of letting the douchebag run around with other douchebags. So I personally struggle with it. So, you know, I have an example of a douchebag story in the book where I needed some information for a Fortune 500 client, and the douchebag, he was pointing his finger at me and said, you know what your problem is? You don't know how to take rejection. And I'm like, is that a compliment or an insult? That person just complimented me. And I actually had no trouble getting to the buyer. It was this person who was having trouble with the buyer.
How many people were in the room? Were there more than
There
one?
was one other person in the room,
Okay.
when the finger was being pointed at me. And I was like, yeah, it's offensive, but at the same time, I had to get out. You know, you have to figure out how to get out. Just get out of the relationship because it's damaging. Because as a therapist, you know, and you know how damaging negative energy is.
Well, that's so interesting that you say that, because sometimes, when I do executive coaching, sometimes I have to say, you need to stop working for this person. You need to go to a different department. Sometimes that's the best answer, and it is, you know, because if you can't, if it becomes so toxic, you know, or this person's always pointing the finger, or they can never, there's not much you can do to change them. At some point, you need to know, you need to take care of yourself.
Yeah. I have a tip for a naysayer, but the douchebag's a hard one.
So what about a naysayer? What's a tip for a naysayer?
You know, because this is the section where it's not all rosy, right?
Right,
You
exactly.
can be insecure and still succeed, but let's say you're dealing with, you know, a naysayer. I once worked with a naysayer that was like, it didn't matter what I said, it was wrong. I could say, this person looks like Sandra Bullock, and she's like, no, she doesn't. I'm like, well, who cares? I mean, you know, I mean, it was anything. It didn't really matter. And I remember my therapist at the time said, you know how you deal with naysayers? You just agree with everything they say. It just kind of burns them out. So you can do that. You probably could do that with douchebags. Just kind of agree.
Yeah. Well, agree. You know, you're not fueling the fire anymore, and at some point they've got nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
You know,
It's not fun anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us a little bit about, you know, going from the C student to the C-suite. You know, as a metaphor. You're saying, you know, you had a lot of insecurities. So how is it that you powered through them and still, you know, because the kind of main point of your book is that you don't have to be, you know, an A student and go to Harvard to be successful, that you can be successful regardless. of who you are.
Yeah, you can. Well, definitely, I'm living proof that you don't need to be perfect. It was interesting because it goes back to like high school days.
Yeah. I mean, that's such an empowering, message.
Yeah, well, in high school, I wasn't a great student, and I don't know if it wasn't I wasn't being challenged or I just wasn't being inspired, but I had preferred to, talk with my friends, and I was actually being punished for talking to my friends and socializing when that is what I became successful for. I always said I was a CU student. I was like unsatisfactory behavior. It was my unsatisfactory behavior that led me to the success.
Yeah. And I love that you put in there that, one class in high school should be socializing and networking and, and teaching kids how to do that.
Right. I don't think there are enough because I think even if you're in drama, it's because you happen to want to excel at drama and maybe you want to be an actress.
Right.
Where it might give you some of that skill set. So it really was just understanding people. I had some early lessons early on that I realized we all kind of put our pants on the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've had some. Yeah, I mean, there were moments where I worked the front desk for my stepfather. I had worked the front desk, and someone came in, and they were disrespectful to me, and they didn't like the art, and they were just not a cool. It wasn't a cool person.
Douchebag.
It was a douchebag. He was definitely a douchebag. If he wasn't a douchebag, he was a douchebag in the making. And I had taken his resume and I walked it back to my stepfather's office and I said, "Your meeting's here, thumbs down." I didn't even say anything. I just said, "Your meeting's here." That was the end of that. And, so there were like, if you're paying attention, how to kind of win people over or things that are happening. And I learned early on who the gatekeepers are, the assistants, everything really, really early on. Who's going to get me that meeting? That assistant is. I'm going to be
So
super
true.
nice to that assistant.
Right.
So important in sales to do that because you never know. We used to come in with cookies and flowers and all kinds of things 'cause you didn't know.
Yeah.
And the other thing that you make, a great point you make, is to be kind to everybody.
Yeah.
Which is what we always say, right? I mean, it's, spiritually, you've got to be kind to everybody.
It doesn't even make sense. Like, I don't get it. I mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who it is, the valet parker, the janitor, everyone's paying their bills to take care of their family.
Yeah.
Right.
I love share with our listeners the story of who's the guy from Virgin Airlines.
Oh, that's Richard Branson.
Oh, that was
was
an
a great
interesting
story.
story.
That's a great story. Yeah,
Yeah.
share it with
That's
our
a good.
listeners.
Yes. Okay. So I was fortunate enough to be invited to Necker Island.
I know. I was going to ask you, how did you get
I
invited?
know.
Yeah.
That's so
Stick
fun.
with me, kiddo. And I was there. I had overheard a story about a team owner, a sports team, and he was rude to the help, who Richard considered family. And he had heard about this story, and about 20 minutes, a few minutes later, he had walked up to that guest and said, "There'll be a boat ready for you in 20 minutes. This is not the way you're not welcome in my home anymore." Wow. It was basically the story.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it was definitely, it was heard third hand there, but it was definitely something he would have done. I mean, he makes it really clear that it's his family. I mean,
There's
on
this
the island.
there's this producer that says, we have a no asshole policy here.
Ooh, I like that.
And that's it reminded me when I was reading that story.
Yeah.
That it's like that. I think people are becoming less tolerant of people who behave that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not okay. Yeah. Definitely.
So that's, it's like I was saying, this book is just, it's so empowering for people because we do have this idea that we need to be, smart or have a great looking resume or graduate from a great college, and there's so much pressure with that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I was actually selling shirts at my launch party that said "Fuck Harvard," and I can't tell you how many Wharton people bought the shirts that were "Fuck Harvard," or whoever. But I think even when you're a C student at the Harvard, they don't feel like it makes them insecure. I think we're trained that to go to a good college and get good grades, and that's how you'll be successful.
Right. And I like how, I mean, what I one of the many things I loved about the book is how honest you are. You know, you put in there, it's not like I wouldn't like to have a degree. I think that's great, you know? So it's not like you're putting that down and that you would even like to, you know, but if you don't, or if that's not your strong suit, it's okay. You can still make it in this world and be very successful.
It still traumatizes me. I mean, it's psychological.
Right. Well, I love, there were a couple of things that you had there that I just loved. One of them was you were telling your mom that you were going to have to leave San Diego State and go to Cal State Northridge. I was laughing so hard because in my particular case, my mom said to me, because I was at CU in Boulder and just having way too much fun, and she said, "You have 1 year, get your ass to Cal State Northridge." You know, so yeah, I totally got that.
Yeah, as I said, you can't get a degree in partying, obviously.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and there's really nothing off limits in the book, which is what I really wanted to open up to. I talk about aging in business. I talk about getting hit on in business.
Yeah. Talk about that.
You want to talk about getting hit on?
Yeah, because that was a huge situation. Back in the day.
Well, back in the day when I was in my 20s, I was really offended, number one. I was always like, no one's taking me seriously. I want them to hear my idea, but I want them to buy it for my great idea. As I got older, I got a little more over that about being offended. I'm now like, thank you. Thank you very much. I'll take it.
Now it's offensive if they don't.
Yeah, exactly. Bingo. That should be in the book, in the changes on the next edition. Yes, but I do give tips and tools and kind of how to get out of it. I mean, as a girl, things are going to happen. I mean, listen, as men get hit on, I've had friends hit on men in business, so it does happen. Yeah. And also, you are going to meet people through work. If you're single, you will, because you spend 90,000 hours of your lifetime at work. Yeah. So a lot of people do meet their significant other through work. Now, as far as getting hit on through business, I sort of give some tips on how to get out of it. I sort of, sometimes I laugh it off, or sometimes I jump right into, are you married? And then tell me about your family, where then it's like, not cool. I also...
That would kind of, shut it down.
Well, the best way to shut it down is say that, you want to be friends. That makes any dick go limp right away. Something else, you can tell me you have a raging VD. That'll do it.
Oh.
Yeah. So there's definitely things. But the important thing is that if you do get hit on in business, like, you don't throw away the relationship. Listen, we need to make money. We can't throw away. If you get hit on, work it to your advantage. I always say, okay, okay, they're interested on another. So I'm always like, okay, well, I'm not going to let this relationship go to waste. How can I keep it intact and be classy about it, and present it the best way you can, and still get the business. I mean, you still need to get the business, the end game.
Yeah, that is.
I say if they're hitting on me, I have a little in my back of my mind. I'm like, okay, I have a little something against them.
Right, exactly. You have a little leverage.
A little leverage.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't need to be anything but in the back of your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how would you, if someone is, and you talk a little bit about it in the book, but if someone is shy and it's not like their nature to just walk up to someone or, start a conversation or try and get, there was one story that you write in there where you wanted a meeting and you were all prepared for it, and then they called to cancel and you said no. And so that you got 15 minutes and that 15 minutes turned into 8 hours. I mean, for someone who has more of a shyer demeanor or more introverted, introverted people doesn't mean they don't know how to socialize, but just someone who doesn't have that kind of, what would you advise?
Well, there's definitely some tricks to do. One of them I always say is if you can grab another associate from work, you could do the buddy system. I don't believe so much in safety in numbers. I feel like that can be ineffective because then you're not meeting people. Yeah. But if you do have a good wingman, I talk about brag about each other. That helps a lot. If we're not working together, I can sit there and just brag about you. I also think it's really important, since we've already talked about how you don't need to be perfect to be successful. I think if you could really, really at the most basic level, know that everyone is equally as fucked up as you or dysfunctional, you will not have as much trouble walking up to someone. It'll be less intimidated. It's like the new thing it's like the new version of seeing someone in their underwear, you know, or that when you're speaking in a speech that everyone's in their underwear. There are, what else? I think sometimes if you, from a very superficial standpoint, I go out and I wear my most expensive outfit, I can't let it go to waste. I mean, then I've talked to no one and no one's really seen my outfit. Go get your hair done. Go get your makeup done. Something that's going to make you feel good. I mean,
so whatever works to help you then walk up to someone or network. If you're the network.
And everyone else feels the same way. Some of my more successful friends, they're so shy. So if you kind of, you know, they're terribly shy. So it doesn't. Sometimes people think success equals that someone is not shy. That's not the case at all.
Yeah.
It's actually quite marvelous to watch somebody. We went to a party Saturday night, and there was one woman, and she just went across the room talking to everybody. I was so impressed by that.
Right?
I just sat there, you know, drinking, but I was tired. But I just watched her, and I thought, wow, I don't know if I could do that. Maybe
I
back
think
in the
sometimes
day.
you can
I
put
don't
on
know.
a character and do that.
That's
like
a good idea.
You
That's
know,
a thought.
you know, like if you're like. If you're a host of a party or you're supposed to be, you know, a host of a party, you put on a character or a role, and then you're more outgoing because that's the role that you're playing versus you having to really expose yourself personally. I can do that, which is very weird because normally if I'm not responsible for the party, I usually stay back in the back and just do, you know. But if you have a role where you're helping or something like that, then you're more outgoing.
That's a good tip.
Yeah, I think so too. I think what we're talking about is find out what works for you.
Yeah.
And then do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go straight to the bar. Is another option.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't
Liquid
say that
courage.
lightly, but when you're going to business functions and it's a conference, a lot of the business happens in the bar.
So true. So true.
And even just going into a crowded space, even if you're not meaning to just stand in line at the bar and just hi,
Yeah.
you know,
Right.
just a basic hello. Who are you with? Or you know, it's really
There's
is.
always that icebreaker. You know, how do you know the host or what brings you here? There's always one sentence that you can say that kind of breaks the ice and then, you
Starts
know.
the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely, you know, try to say icebreakers are that's absolutely 100%. I mean, I'll give you an example at my party, at my book launch party. Of course, my whole goal is for everyone to build relationships. So I need to figure out a way to make that happen at my own party, right? What a horrible party it would be if I did not give that lesson off. So what I did was I had name tags. But instead of just having a name tag, I came up with titles from the book. So I had douchebag, or I had fuck Harvard, I had C student, I had princess warrior goddess, and I had cockblocker, and I had, you know, nincompoop and neurotic cute, and everyone had the best time. And all the ones that all the funny, all the dirtiest ones had gone first.
Right. Oh,
yeah, they were.
Oh,
like,
so you had for them to pick.
They could
whatever.
pick
I was
whatever
gonna
they
say
wanted.
you didn't just give it to them like
No,
a douchebag.
they could-
You could be douchebag all night.
No. And I kept on zooming in because Getty Images was there, and I was like, I don't remember because it was one big blur. But I just kept on zooming in to see what people had chosen as their name tags,
That
and it
is
was
so funny.
It was fantabulous.
That is
So
hilarious.
that's a good icebreaker.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a great icebreaker. And you also talk about, like, if you're going to host a party, you need to, just what you said, you need to be able to do things that will get it going and know who you're doing the party with.
Ooh, yeah, that was an interesting thing in corporate America. They would sponsor events, but they weren't really good at meeting people. They were buying the sponsorships, but they weren't really meeting anyone. You have to, you know, if you are shy, definitely look for the people that aren't. I mean, I know that sounds crazy because it's probably terrifying to walk up to them, but they will take you under their. I'm a caretaker, so I will take anyone under my wing. The shyer you are, the more I love it. I'm like, oh, this is great. I'm gonna make you the most popular person at this whole party. Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, I think it's part of, you know, knowing yourself enough to know. I know I'm a fantastic follower. I'm not a leader. I can't walk up to someone, you know, like you do, and hey, how's it going? But if you say, hey, how's it going? I'm right behind you going, yeah. And so, and then I can absolutely do that. And so it's about knowing, accepting yourself. It took me a while to accept it because I envied so much people that were so outgoing and could just walk up to anybody,
Yeah.
And it's just not in my nature. But I am a great follower. I can, follow behind. So a lot of my friends are very outgoing, and we have the best time because I'm not going to sit in the corner and do this while I'm right there with them.
Oh, you're
I
great.
just need someone to start it off, and then I can really follow along. But that's part of, and I've changed a lot through therapy and through other stuff. The part that was more came from my own stuff as opposed to just who I am, and my personality and character.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's still understanding who you are and finding stuff that can help. It's just like a great CEO knows their weaknesses and their strengths and finds people around them too. And you know this because you were an executive.
And it was before I had a head injury in 2000, but prior to my head injury, I was that person. I was the one that I'd go, I was social, I had to introduce this president to that president. I mean, that was my role. I mean, as to do that. So I really related to the book. And then after that, my life changed, and I'm not in that position anymore. But it was really a fun, exciting thing to be able to do that. I enjoy it. And if anybody is out there that loves to do it, they should definitely read this book. It's amazing.
Do you have it up on our...
I do.
It's
been up the whole time.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
It's
Really-
a quick read. It's a great read.
It's easy to read. It's completely comprehensive because it has a lot of information in there.
And
but
it's got a great chapter called The Vajayjay.
The JJ Power.
Okay, let's
talk
talk
about
about
the
the
JJ
JJ
Power.
Okay, I'm
Power.
leaving. No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally
I
kidding.
was
JJ.
howling with the Betty White quote.
that's hilarious.
it's the
I actually
best quote.
texted it to Shirley today.
Yeah,
It
it
was so
was
funny.
hilarious.
The best quote. And
So
I have an
share it with our
obsession
listener.
with older people in general because I find them very inspiring and full of good information. Okay, so Betty White is the original Princess Warrior Goddess.
Yeah.
She says, why do people say grow some balls? Balls are weak and sensitive. You want to get tough, you grow a vagina. Now that thing takes a pounding. Now, hello.
That is just so
Yes.
funny.
And it's true.
Literally
It is
and
literally and
metaphorically.
figuratively. Yes, it is.
And it
so-
stretches, right?
Yeah,
Okay. I'll just see.
Thank you, John, for that one. Thank you.
Well, I mean, it's elastic. It's
elastic.
it's what's
Don't keep digging yourself in that
what's
hole.
what's the word I'm looking for? It's
Flexible?
mutable.
Mutable.
Yeah,
Okay.
adapts to change. There you go.
Alrighty.
Like a Virgo?
Well, the Vajayjay Power is actually a really important chapter in there
Yeah.
because I really, really believe in supporting other women and really kind of understanding the numbers. And, obviously there's far less women in business than men and at a very high level as well. But, we control 80% of spending, consumer spending.
Oh, that's so interesting. I didn't know
Yeah, and 45% of millionaires in the U.S. are women.
Wow.
And by
Really?
2030, we will have 2/3 of the nation's wealth.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's important for girls to hear this, and also we tend to spend our money differently too. We tend to save our money, and if we were out there investing more, it would be probably more beneficial.
Yeah.
But I think that if we could spread the word, how we control corporations at the end of the day if we're the ones spending the money.
That's very true. Yeah.
So, I always try to remind people, I'm like, girls, you have so much more power than you think. I mean, there's no business without girls. I mean, we're the ones, if you need to buy a pair of shoes, buy them.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely one thing.
And what was the quote? There's a special place in hell.
Yes, for
For-
women that don't support other women. Yeah, Marion
Who
Albright.
said that? Yeah. Marion Albright said it. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they're definitely, there's some good quotes in there.
There's some quotes. Oh, there's some really good
There's
quotes.
some-
Yeah.
And the cartoon, the drawings are
Oh.
just
Yeah.
Hilarious.
funny.
Yeah, really lucked out with the editor and the illustrator of they were girls they were very similar. And
Yeah.
so they were so empowered when they were reading it that they just what they came up with creatively was like unbelievable.
Yeah.
I did not lose my voice in the process. Became stronger.
Yeah.
And in addition, the illustrator is just off the charts, was interesting because when I first approached her, I have a story in there about the crotch shot, which I'm sure you
Hilarious.
stumbled
I
upon.
am beautiful.
I am beautiful.
Maybe you can share that with our listeners because it was so funny.
And I had some certain things that I saw needing to be illustrated. And some of it was just making the list pretty, and then some were just visuals of what I had talked about.
Yeah.
And she was sort of adamant and said, no. We're not going to give away the punchlines. It should be able to be funny on its own. Let's just add to it. Let's highlight it. Let's come up with some visuals that don't give it away. And she ran with it.
Yeah.
And it was funny because it was supposed to be a small illustration project, and it took a life of its own.
Yeah.
Which was awesome because you never stop I don't stop creative people. I mean, if someone's good, you let them go.
Well, and it was so right on because you're right. The pictures didn't take away from the story; they added to it.
Right.
Yeah. So tell us the I am beautiful, the crotch shot.
Yeah. Okay. I was headed towards. I was going to a very important meeting with the president of ABC. And I was with my two studly business partners. Every guy had a man crush on him. Every girl wanted to date him. They were amazing. We killed it in the room. But we were heading to ABC. It was a pretty important meeting. And we were with the president. And we were sitting these unbelievably low couches, and mine are unbelievably low at home too. They're like, the couch that you're kind of so low that you don't really know how to get a good position. So I decided to lean forward and get a power position. And as I leaned forward to get a power position, I glanced down at my body and I see that my fly is like wide open. And I'm like, what? And I'm teeing off the pitch, the girl. Yeah. And I'm like frozen. And everyone's kind of looking at me, and I'm never stumped for words. And I'm like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? Not only is my fly wide open, and I'm wearing bright blue panties, it happened to be laundry day. And I was wearing my inspirational underwear. And and they were every day of the week. And what was that message of today? You are beautiful. You are beautiful. I'm like, okay, I am wearing you are beautiful underwear. They could clearly see my crotch. So I literally froze. And then a moment later, I said, fuck it. I got up. I stood up in front of all these men, literally now at crotch level. And I zipped up my pants and said, everyone needs a way to break the ice.
Right.
And everyone laughed probably for a half hour straight. Oh, and so there's a good EQ moment. Right. I turned a negative situation into a really funny, positive one.
Right, exactly.
And I literally could not go on because you know what that's like. If you find out,
well, especially when you can't cover it up with your shirt, you're sitting there and you're in the zipper, and especially if you're leaning forward, it's opening even more.
Yeah, and it was a good one.
Hilarious.
It was a good one.
So funny.
We did sell the show too to another network. We had a bidding war. But see, you got to. And by the way, there's just one where you just got to make fun of yourself.
Yeah,
you can't take it so. That whole chapter is out of control.
Wow.
Yeah.
No, it's hilarious. But that's true. You have to make fun of yourself. Not make fun of yourself, but you have to laugh at yourself and not be so serious. And that actually humanizes you to the other person.
Well, and it takes a lot of courage.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
wow. Talk about the power of the vajayjay.
That was serious vajayjay power.
Wow.
Definitely. That chapter's filled with little fun tips. I mean, like, there's, I don't know how far you got into that, but, it talks about how we're all kind of the same. Like, we all poop, we all have pimples,
everybody
we all
poops.
have
That's
cellulite, we
hilarious.
all have etc. And then I ended up telling a story about how I literally had diarrhea with business people, and it was how I had to tell them I had diarrhea. It was so horrible. actually had to send 2 men out to get me Pepto-Bismol.
That is so
So,
funny.
I mean, and you know what? But that will bond you forever.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
But
true.
that's just it. The things that we think are going to,
These were
you
C-level
know,
executives. You had to
Yeah.
get me Pepto-Bismol.
that is so fun. The things that, you know, that we're mortified about can actually bond us with people because everybody's had those things happen. If it's not diarrhea, it's something.
No,
you know,
absolutely.
embarrassing, right?
Absolutely. No question.
So time has flown, and we've had so much fun talking with you.
me too.
Thank you so much for joining us from C Student to the C Suite. It's a great read. You'll
Great
have a
read.
lot of fun reading it, and you'll learn a lot too.
Yeah. You'll
And
laugh. It's great. It'll give you a lot of confidence.
Yeah, and not in a what was it that you said, like in a textbook, you know? And then you
Yeah.
have boring. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really an easy,
Yeah.
fun, great, empowering read.
Yeah. So
And the website, right?
please, yeah, give us the website,
From
John.
C student to the C suite.com. So from C student, the letter C, student, to the C, letter C, suite.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Tammy, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you,
us. It was a
guys.
great
Thanks.
pleasure.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning in and listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Both Sides Now, featuring the unconventional duo Dr. Shirley and Kelly White.
Two perspectives, one world.